I have a difficult task to go straight from European level to go down to a very local level. But one of the things I just want to say following on from the last speakers are that in an Irish context, and particularly in a Byrne context, we would very much welcome the flexibility and the essentially seizing back control to develop our own measures, given the uniqueness and diversity of the situations we have within our region and also within the country. But also we must remember that we cannot do this alone. We're part of an Irish community, we're part of an EU community. We need the support of Europe and a common framework and common vision for where we're going with this as well. And also, I'd like to say that this is all about a partnership. And if we deliver services at local level, we realize that these are for European citizens and it's for the benefit of the European citizens as a whole and also a global community. So I know I'm talking very local, but we have a mind to the global needs and societal needs as well. Also, coming from just not myself, I'm part of a partnership here. This is not my presentation. I want to acknowledge that Brendan and Michael, Dolores and Catherine are here in the room as well, representing our partners both locally and nationally in terms of the Byrne Bio Trusts, our universities, institutes of technology, our national advisory service as well, and the support of our political representatives. So in any good partnership, somebody always has your back. So if I can't answer your questions, Brendan, Michael, Catherine or Dolores are here today to help me. So what I want to do today is give an overview or an outline of how HNV farmland can deliver ecosystem services and in particular public goods. I'll use the Byrne story as an example of how innovation in HNV farming can deliver public goods in a wider, more integrated approach to land use policy. And we're working towards here sustainable agriculture, and I want to emphasize throughout that innovation and partnership adapted at local level can give rise to results that deliver at local level. So just to illustrate the diversity of the situation, first of all, I just use the island of Ireland as an example on the northwest coast of Europe. This is the model distribution of HNV farmland in Ireland, and it shows the likelihood of finding a HNV farm in any region as you go from the east to the west. As you're in the blue areas, there's less chance of encountering a HNV farm. As you're in the very dark green areas, nearly every farm you will walk onto will be a HNV farm. So we see we have a big diversity of situations here in Ireland. We have in the southeast of the country, we have our intensive production areas on very fertile soils. As we move further west, we encounter more natural constraints to food production. But these are the areas that are hugely important in terms of and recognized for their high biodiversity, landscape and socio-cultural values. They're also the areas that have the highest legal nature designations recognized in Europe as being important for European biodiversity and cover approximately 30% of the agricultural area of Ireland. I must emphasize here to Humberto as well that only 50% of our HNV farmland is designated as Natura. So a policy just focused on Natura alone will not encompass the totality of the biodiversity and will be detrimental in this situation. So that's only as an example. And now I said I'd stick to script, so I better not go off it too much. We have a short period of time. So a lot of my presentation will be focused on the Byrne region, just highlighted here in red. So just to highlight in terms of ecosystem services, we're talking a lot about them here today. We have a diversity of European farmed landscapes across the whole of Europe. All these farmed landscapes had to provide all the services that society needs. Everything from food and fiber to pollination, regulation of climate, regulation of water supply, spaces to recreate and for where we go undertake our tourism activities. So essentially all human health and well-being has to be provided by these areas, including food. So we need to provide these broad range of goods and services, but in our current economic model, only the actual production services of food and fiber are rewarded by the marketplace. And in a society where you only reward certain services, then you're, by definition, you're going to get undersupply of non-market ecosystem services. And this is what I'm just going to simplify it down. everything here that isn't rewarded by the market, it's all food, forestry, fibre, it's all an ecosystem service, but the public goods are the ones that aren't delivered by the market. You know, it's an oversimplification, the economists would be killing me, but that's what we're going to say the public goods are, the non-market ecosystem services. So what's the role of high nature value farming? We know it can produce high quality food, but what are the main public goods and ecosystem services associated with high nature value farmland? These are farmland biodiversity and associated ecosystem services of pollination and biological control and disease control. Water quality and water regulation, both in terms of availability and supply in terms of flooding. Regulation of climate in terms of carbon storage. These areas are hugely important in terms of air quality and building fire resilience into systems. And also, these agricultural landscapes underpin our tourism industries and are the areas where our increasingly urban populations recreate. One thing we must remember within ecosystem services, that not all pieces of land can be all things to all people. There are inherent synergies and trade-offs. So generally, just a huge oversimplification of the issue, as we increase the production services and concentrate more and more on them, we get less supply of other regulatory and support and biodiversity regulated services. So one of the things we have to concentrate on here is we target the service provision to the capacity of the land that's best suited to produce it. So this is where I want to go on the burn story or journey, okay? As an example of how we can actually, in an integrated model, pay for food as well as pay for these public goods. I'm going to highlight a small bit where have we come from, where are we now, and where do we want to go. And essentially, over the last 20 years, this has been a story of innovation in HNV farming, delivering food and a wide range of services. We don't use the term innovation, we don't use the terms ecosystem services when we're talking in our local area, but this is the framework within which we're looking at it from a policy perspective. And what we're looking at here is locally adapted solutions, but as I said before, cognizant of our role in terms of providing services to wider European society and European citizens. This is the story in a nutshell, a slide borrowed from Brendan. And with all innovation processes, the burn process back in 1995 arose from a situation of conflict and major problems. So we had on the one hand the introduction of the nature designations. We had new agri-environmental schemes coming on board. This was seen as very top-down. It obviously, from its inception, couldn't be cognizant of the diversity of situations we had at local level. And in fact, agriculture was seen as the problem for nature conservation. So what happened in the late 90s then, that a research project was initiated by our National Parks and Wildlife Service, Teagasc, and our Irish Farmers Association. And essentially, from that research project, it came up with the issue that maybe our perceived problem is not the problem at all, it's the solution. And this is where marrying agriculture and nature conservation came to play. That then became the foundation for the actual LIFE program in 2005 to 2010. That was our pilot phase that developed the solutions of how we integrate nature conservation and farming within a high nature value farming system. A lot of what was done here on a social innovation point of view was a lot done through the Burn Bio Trust, which was initiated during the research program. A lot of what we do is about connecting people and their place. Following the success of the LIFE program, it was much lauded across Europe. This secured funding for us both at national and also European support. And we, from that, developed a rollout phase through Article 68, another pilot program. So we had about 120 farmers on board from 2010 to 2015. In the current round of the CAP, we have enough money to support any farmer that wants to take part in this program through the Burn program. So all this whole process, essentially, in summary, has been a process of trust building, co-creation of solutions, partnership and working together, and participation of the whole community. And one of the things that HNV-Link has brought to the situation, HNV-Link has really come into play from 2016 onwards, as we had rolled out into a full-scale rollout of an agri-environmental scheme. But HNV-Link gave us the opportunity to reflect, review where we are, evaluate where we want to go, And one of the important things I think the HNV-Link has given us is the opportunity to create a vision for where we want to go. So we're on as a community as a whole, and the supporting organizations, we're clear on where we want to be. And the vision we have for HNV farming, or sustainable farming in the Burren, is the Burren will be an increasingly attractive place to live and farm. A place where farm families enjoy the support and respect of society to produce quality food and deliver valued services, thereby sustaining the Burren's rich heritage for the benefit of all. Now, the Burren is often seen as a success story, but to be honest, looking at that vision, I think we would all realize, living in and close to the area, that we're a long way from achieving that vision. There are still many challenges that we face, including poor economic outlooks for the beef and sheep farming sector in many HNV farming areas of Ireland, poor social structure in terms of the attractiveness of the farming as a career to our young generations, and we have an aging farming population. But we are actively working on, we see all these as not overriding sort of suffocating challenges, but challenges that can be addressed. And that's the one thing that the process has given us, is that no challenge at the moment is too great. There is a real sense of belief, and the belief in the local area. And it really comes from the solution, which is a community stewardship model. So what we're trying to do is provide the Burren farmers with targeted financial, technical, and social or cultural support. So appealing to both their pocket, their head, and also, more importantly, their heart in terms of where we want to go. So this is all leading to the care of their own place. And from a very young age as a farmer in Ireland, you're told you have to hand on the farm in a better state to the next generation. The big question is here, in the current situation we have globally in terms of our environmental challenges, what is better? So also in terms of reflecting on where we are, the HNV-Link process also allowed us to look at this innovation framework and assess where we are. So we broke down what we're doing in terms of social and institutional innovation, regulation and policy, products and markets, and farming techniques. We're doing quite well, obviously, in terms of the social and institutional innovation, in terms of community partnerships, development of joint solutions, celebrating the farmer through national awards programs. Regulation and policy we're working around it and working with it, and it's developing as we go along, as you would expect. Products and markets, we're not really capitalizing both in terms of tourism products or food products, in terms of adding value and supporting the system. So we have a lot of work to do on that front. So we have work done, but we have a lot to do. So calling it a success story, I think, is a bit premature at the moment. One of the things we have been successful at is essentially we're seen now in Europe as a leader in terms of the design of results-based agri-environment and innovative agri-environment programs. These are essentially payments for ecosystem services. And in the Burren, if a farmer is providing better nature value, more landscape quality, improving water quality, fields are scored on a 10-point scale. Essentially, the higher your score, the better your payment. This essentially creates the market for public goods where the traditional markets fall down. This is a picture from 10 years ago at the end of our LIFE program. Two of our farmers at the time explaining to the public at our end of LIFE project conference, I think it was, saying that the environment is a new product, we can provide it, and there is a market. Now, it took 10 years after this photograph was taken to have that opportunity for every farmer in the Burren, but we're there now. And I think the areas that are following on from us can achieve this a lot quicker. And this is where I want to come to spreading the message more widely, even within Ireland. We've heard about the EIP agri-operational groups this morning. Ireland, inspired by the Burren approach, has adopted a very novel approach to the implementation of the EIP operational groups in an Irish context. I want to acknowledge our own Department of Agriculture for having the courage to go outside the box, but also acknowledge the flexibility given to Ireland by the European Commission in allowing Ireland to essentially try and adopt the Burren partnership model for a range of problems and challenges across the agricultural sector, everything from intensive to extensive areas. The one thing I'd like to highlight here, which I'm still amazed when I look at this, of the 23 projects that we've had finally funded at the end of 2018, almost 50% of them are high nature value farmland areas. following the lead from the Burn. And one of the areas, just to highlight, I don't know how many of them were influenced, but I know myself, Brendan, Michael, Dolores, and a few more, I'd say have been on the phone over the last 24 months to at least all of these groups in some form or another. But a lot of them have come up with very innovative, novel ideas, very different than what we're doing, but testing a whole range of solutions. From the HNV-Link point of view, I think we can take particular pride in the Blackstairs Farming Futures program. You know, it's a nod to the Dartmoor Farming Futures. We've even copied their name, so this imitation is the best form of flattery. But it explicitly states on the application for that EIP, it wishes to marry the Burn results-based model with the Dartmoor Farming Futures model of governance of common land. And one of the things, just talking to the farmers in them areas, they'll say, we're not copying them, we know what they've done, we're not going to make their mistakes, we're going to do our area better. So it is, and we're going to do it faster. So it is. So this is the level, I think, of inspiration in the area we're in at the moment. And all these initiatives are shaping a new narrative around farming for nature in Ireland. And this really has, I think, really scaled up in the last 12 months. We've had the first National Farming for Nature Awards in Ireland last year. These are the finalists, and they were presented with their awards by the Vice President of the European Parliament, Moran McGuinness. So we're getting support from local, regional and EU politicians. And in the national media, even on UK media in terms of BBC, this has been receiving a lot of attention. And now, in the intensive farming areas of Ireland, they want results-based models within their dairy sector to show the additional services they can provide in terms of biodiversity, in terms of managing their non-productive areas as well. So one of the things I want to emphasize just in my last two slides is here, a key thing for the Burn as well as other areas within our learning area network has been knowledge sharing and network building. We're continuing to develop and learn as we go along. The one thing I want to emphasize, these areas are not museum landscapes. They're living, breathing landscapes that want to continue to grow, continue to develop, and continue to learn. And it's only by us all working together that we can actually bring new ideas to play and find new solutions. And just in the last slide, I want to just highlight where we're going. At the moment, I think there's quite a bit of hope out there in a Burn and an Irish context, that we're on a pathway to a more integrated land use policy, where both people, nature and food is valued. And this has all come about through working together within an innovative network that we now have across Europe, working in partnership to come up with locally adapted and results-orientated solutions.